Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about branched chain amino acids. And yeah, I'm going to do some name dropping here, and the reason I need to do some name dropping here is because this goes to show you that people who claim to be evidence-based, and oftentimes are, again, valid credentials in scientific fields that are relevant, who cite a lot of studies, but they'll talk about being scientific, but then they will promote products that are not scientifically proven. And the big one that comes to mind is branched chain amino acids. This is the biggest supplement scam of our era. Like since I became a YouTuber, whatever, 8-9 years ago, this was the biggest scam, and I started calling it out fairly early on as a potential scam, and I ended up being sued over it. Now, what turned out years later, and I've even had other people in the area, again, some guys who have PhDs, who kind of said, well, look, Blaha was right, but look at the price he paid for being right. Sometimes being right's not worth it. But you have guys who still, even later on, have still been selling them post-meta-analysis, claiming to be evidence-based. And perfect examples are Jeff Nippert and Athlean X. They're perfect examples. And Jeff has come and argued that point with me before, like, well, you know, I feel like it might give whatever placebo. And that's well and good to try to claim that, but you don't get to claim to be evidence-based when multiple meta-analyses have said that the supplement you're pimping doesn't work. Okay, and we've known this for like 4 years now. Okay, we're going on something like 4 years. Now, I'll get people who the other day, in that one video I did, I said, you know, that Jeff Cavalier pushes branched chain amino acids still and sells them. And someone said, really, I didn't know they don't work, which is shocking because everyone else out there who is evidence-based put the studies and meta-analysis up, and many of them stopped selling them. But here's the other thing that we need to think about. How many people out there pimped them? And that's a big issue for me. I can think of a lot of people who I might even like some of their other work. Guys like Jordan Feigenbaum. I actually happen to appreciate some of his work. Okay? But he was selling branched chain amino acids with no evidence. Okay? I want people to understand that. Do you understand that when people were pushing these things, they basically were just going off Norton's research, which I got sued for calling out. Now, keeping in mind, there were possible personal ties there, which is what I called out. And it was stuff done on rodents. There had been no human clinical trials that showed real evidence of muscle growth from taking branched chain amino acids as a supplement, as a standalone. I want people to understand that. So you had all these people, everyone from, I mean, and I don't mean to just pick on someone like Jordan because he was one of very, very many. And like I said, I tend to be fairly favorable to his work. I don't consider him to be a bad guy in the industry by any means. But if we're going to talk about science and we're going to talk about truth, if you're going to push products that some people are paying up to $50 a month for, that companies are making millions and millions of dollars selling, and we're going to talk about evidence, you better have some. Eric Helms pushed them, and I think he later pulled them down. And of course, Eric is again, a snake anyways. We know that. We can watch some of the stuff that Eric has pulled. I don't hold a favorable view of him. And we've had conversations in the past. He knows who I am. But he pushed them. But they're not the only ones. Tons of people did. And they did it without real evidence. And this goes to show you, like, people will say, oh, well, there was this whatever study. So the evidence-based people will push something off of a single study that doesn't have any evidence. I mean, a perfect one. Look how many guys still push occlusion training. Do we have any clinical trials comparing the same rep ranges they're doing occlusion training without the bands that measure muscle growth over like 9 or 10 or 12 weeks? We don't have a single study actually measuring muscle growth. Not one after all these years. Not one study has ever been done measuring muscle growth. Okay? They check metabolites. And they're not even always doing an equal comparison. That was one of the problems that was called out years ago on the occlusion training by some experts, was that, look, there's no actual apples to apples comparison. They're comparing metabolites with this failure training with lightweight versus the normal, at the time called hypertrophy rep range. Okay, they produce similar metabolites, but those same metabolites are also produced if you do really, really high rep 30 and 40 rep sets to failure without the bands. Meaning that there's no actual evidence that even the metabolites are higher as a result of the bands. That wasn't actually even studied at the time everyone pushed this stuff. And I like very high rep training as restoration work and stuff. But back over to the point, they'll push stuff like that still do not have evidence of muscle growth. Well, that's what we had with branched chain amino acids. We can talk about leucine having anabolic drive, but here's what the meta-analysis found. That adding it as a standalone supplement caused no improvements in muscle protein synthesis and no improvements in muscle growth. In other words, branched chain amino acids by themselves, without the other essential amino acids present in comparable ratios, do not increase muscle protein synthesis. They require the full spectrum. Now, some people will say, well, does that mean I should take a full amino acid supplement? No, you should eat protein. Whether you choose to get that protein from a supplement or not, I mean, you could do whey protein. If you wanted a supplement, whey protein is dramatically superior to branched chain amino acids in every way. In every way, pardon the pun there, in every way possible. And it has the full spectrum of amino acids, and everything's in a good ratio and in a complementary amount. It actually stimulates muscle protein synthesis up to a point. Up to a point. And the other issue we run into, people are like, well, couldn't I just take a protein source and add branched chain amino acids to it? Couldn't I just add it to it? Well, no, because off of a single feeding, there seems to be a cap on leucine. In other words, people who took below 2.5 grams of leucine, for example, in a single serving of complete proteins, or a matrix with it mixed in, okay, they continue to see some improvement in muscle protein synthesis, but in that 2.5 up to about 3 gram range of leucine, when you exceed that, there is no improvement. So if you're already taking a food, and a lot of protein shakes already have this, without adding any BCAAs, they already hit that leucine threshold. So adding more doesn't increase the muscle protein synthesis response. You see the problem there? So anyone who says, well, I need it for the muscle protein synthesis, well, the data suggests that you just need more protein in your diet. In other words, if you feel like there would be any benefit to it, you would be better off simply adding more protein to your diet. But how often is it for non-vegan lifters who eat meat and dairy every day to not get enough protein to maximize muscle protein synthesis? Or even muscle growth. Keeping in mind, we don't have studies showing that anyone, including hard training lifters, even gains muscle by exceeding 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. Multiple studies have looked at this. That seems to be the threshold where extra muscle growth stops. Not saying the extra protein is wasted, it's just not going to make you grow faster. So people have supported this, and then we have all these meta-analyses have looked at it and said it doesn't even seem to, when you add it, it doesn't even increase muscle protein synthesis. And when you really concentrate it, people say, well, maybe you just need more. That's actually been tested. It's actually been infused in IVs. What do you think happened? And this is what meta-analysis showed. It reduced nitrogen retention and muscle protein synthesis to infuse it directly into the bloodstream in an IV. It reduced it. Net nitrogen retention was reduced. In other words, it seemed to encourage a higher ratio of breakdown versus preservation of total protein. We don't have evidence that it causes muscle growth at all, even when infused with an IV. It is a useless supplement. Yet there are still people promoting it off placebo. Off placebo. the evidence suggests that it is useless. So you need to call these people out. If you follow them, you might want to think this through. How scientific and evidence-based are they when they're going to pimp products like this still? And I could be wrong. Maybe Nippard has stopped doing so, and if so, then hey, that's good. But he should probably say, hey, I shouldn't have probably pimped this garbage product. Right? It would be nice if people would do that, considering some of us have been sued over it for calling it out. The least those people could do is say, okay, I was wrong. I was a little greedy and I got over ambitious with what I was pimping. But when you had guys who, after the meta-analysis, were still selling it, that's some con man shit right there. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.